Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Captain, and today I'm going to be reviewing and talking about and telling you about Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, a game of deduction and suspense by Prospero Hall, which of course is the design team over at the publisher Funko Games. So I want to start off by giving a big thank you to Funko Games for this free copy of Rear Window to be able to play and review and film some content with. Thank you very much, Funko Games. And before I get too into this, I do want to say I've got a ton of links in the description below that you can check out at your leisure. There's a link to BoardGameCaptain.com, which is a great hub for all things Board Game Captain. There's also a link to my Teespring store if you'd like to get yourself some cool Board Game Captain merch, t-shirts, mugs, etc. And there's a link to my Patreon if you're in a position to and would like to support the channel. All right, so Rear Window. Let's have a look at what comes in the box. So first off, this is a totally unnecessary thing, but the inside of the box has pictures on it, has artwork in the middle, which is totally unnecessary, but is nice. It does help to add to the whole aesthetic of the game. We also have the rule book right here. Now, first off, the rulebook is very well done. It's full color, lots of diagrams, lots of explanations, but also, and this is really cool about it, lots of references to the original movie. So I'm an Alfred Hitchcock fan. I'm a big cinephile, and the player's guide is set up to look like a magazine containing a photograph on the cover, and it says Grand Prix Disaster Photos by L.B. Jeffries, which is the character in the movie, played by Jimmy Stewart, and this is supposed to be how he got injured and why he was laid up with his leg in a cast when he was taking the photos out of the rear window, looking at people, looking at his neighbors, which started the whole story. Again, of course, this is totally based on a classic film, the classic film from Alfred Hitchcock, Rear Window, which starred Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly. So, I'm a big fan of the nostalgia effect they're going for with this. I like when companies do a proper, decent game based on a really cool old IP to kind of bring it back into the forefront. And Funko Games has been doing a lot of that. So let's have a look and see if they succeed with this particular one. So first off, when you get past that in the inside, you've got a fantastic insert that has a place for everything. Over here, I'm going to pull these up here. Because once we pull these out, I also want to show you that beneath them, we have an insert with a plastic lid for all of the cardboard punch-out chits and tokens that are used for the game, where literally everything has a place in this insert. This is absolutely fantastic. So we have these boards that go out on the table here. You're going to see some of these out while I'm showing some pictures and talking about how this game plays. These are really nice. They're meant to look like the windows across the alleyway that Jimmy Stewart was looking at in the movie, and it's very important for the gameplay because the director, the player who's playing the director, who's basically playing Alfred Hitchcock, is going to give you hints of things you see through these windows. In addition to the three boards that you see, which are all the same set of windows but through three different days, the director has a board where they have their solution set up of what it is that is really being seen in each of the windows. This is what the other players have to figure out. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then we have a pair of little screens, one for the director and one for the player. So for the director, you've got this lovely bit of illustration on the back, and on the other side, you have this here that gives you a little cheat sheet for playing a day, as well as it says the director and how to use your cut tokens, which allow you to get redeals of cards and such. Now this is really nice and useful for the director. And again, they use it again to hide the solution so that the players can't see what the correct solution is. Now, on the player's side, we have this particular one here, which again has both a cheat sheet for all the different people and such that you're looking for, but it also just has a bunch of symbols you're going to be using, which I'm going to explain in a minute. The yes, the no, the question mark, the exclamation point, all the people, and the different windows you're going to be pointing at these when trying to communicate to the other players silently, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. It's a big part of the game, actually. Next, we have the Watchers. These are abilities that can be used once each for the players to help them figure things out. Usually you're going to use them on days 2 and 3. Once you've started to sort of possibly figure things out, you're going to use these to do some special abilities to help you get some more clues, which is really nice. We have a little box that the director is going to put the extra characters and characteristics that they didn't use in here without looking at them, so they will not have complete information. We have cards, lots of cards. These are the things the director is going to use to give you clues. Now, the cards are of all sorts of different things. I'm going to show you some of them here that might hint at who lives in an apartment, what they do, what their characteristics might be. For instance, both of these cards, if they're placed in the apartment, might tell you that this blonde lady lives in that apartment. In this case, it might tell you that there's some criminal activity going on there as well. There's lots of different cards to help hint you in the right direction or possibly the wrong direction, which we're going to get to in a minute. Now, the tokens are tokens that tell you that the person you're looking at is in each window is a particular person. The people could be the police officer, the songwriter, Mrs. Thornwald, Miss Lonely, Miss Hearing Aid, Miss Torso, Mr. Thornwald, the fire escape couple, or a police officer. And then there are a ton of tokens that give each of those people a characteristic. They're the klutz, the virtuoso, the heartbroken, the gourmand, the drunk, the writer, the athlete, très chic, the gardener, the thief, the animal lover, the photographer, the globetrotter, the art connoisseur. There's a bunch of advanced tokens that you can kind of graduate onto that allows you to actually relate some of these characters to another, because maybe instead of being a virtuoso, maybe someone is looking for romance with another character. And then it's a little more difficult. These are something you graduate onto. And then, of course, we have the murderer token, which the murderer token is a unique token. One of them could be a murderer, but you don't know specifically if there's a murderer on each given time or if you're reading too into things when looking at the windows. But again, we're going to discuss that all momentarily. All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to run you through a little bit of how this game plays. I'm not going to show you a full tutorial because it'd be a little weird. The thing about this game is you've got a lot of hidden information on both sides, so it's really hard to show it all. And then also, a lot of the game is generally played in silent, which is a bit odd. So the thing is, you fully set up, and you set up the boards out there for days 1, 2, 3, and 4. All 4 days get set out of the same 4 windows. You set up the screens across from each other. You place the solution board behind the director's screen. You place the 4 watcher placards next to the board. Those are the special ability placards that the players can use to use special abilities. The director sits behind the screen. They shuffle up the window cards and place them face down behind the screen. They take one of each residence token from the game tray, and they take the 3 cut tokens and the 4 wooden cubes. Now, the 3 cut tokens are used for being able to get more cards if you don't really like the cards in your hand. You take the trunk box and pop it open. The watchers take 12 attribute tiles. They take a set of 5 tiles for each attribute they choose and place them face up next to the day board so all players can see them. They take one of each of the chosen attribute tiles and mix them together with 1 murder tile, then pass those 13 tiles to the director in a face down stack. The director cannot look at them yet. Now, once you do this, the director will draw 4 random attribute tiles from the stack that the watchers pass to them, and they'll place 1 face up on each of the 4 attribute spots on the solution board. So the thing about this is the director doesn't actually know which ones you chose from amongst the tiles. So it's kind of interesting, and this is a big part about why you're going to want to stay silent, why you're going to want to play silently later. I'm going to explain. The director picks the residents that they're going to put on the 4 spots. They put them all on the solution board. So they have a resident and a solution on each spot on the solution board, and they're ready to go. Now, during the game, it plays very similar to games like Mysterium, which are actually kind of rare in modern gaming, but there's a twist here. So now, whereas a game like Mysterium is generally fully cooperative, everybody's trying to figure out what, the clues are that the director is giving them. This one is possibly cooperative, possibly competitive. So the thing is, if there is no murderer, if the murderer token did not come up, the players, other than the director, don't know this, but the game is actually completely cooperative. What's happening is the director wants everyone to guess who lives in each apartment and what their trait is. Because once they guess that, if they guess all 4 of them, everyone wins. However, if the murder tile comes up, the director is trying to get you to guess most of them, but not figure out there's a murderer. Because if you figure out there's a murderer and you get it and you guess everything correctly, the players win. But if you get most of them but not the murderer, the director wins. So then it becomes competitive. So it's very interesting. They still want you to guess most of it correctly, but not the murderer. But as they don't actually know which 13 trait tiles you chose, they don't know which one to direct you at if you don't speak aloud, which is why playing this game quietly becomes a very important thing. And now to play this game quietly, again, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the screens, because this is something that's very important to discuss, in my opinion. The screen for the players has lots of things that you can point to. So when you're playing with your players, you're all going to huddle around the screen, and you're going to say, you're going to point to apartment A and then a point to Miss Torso. Do you think it's Miss Torso? And people are going to say yes or no, or, question mark for maybe they don't really know. And you're going to do your guesses accordingly every round, because every round the director is putting out the cards in the windows, and you're going to look at those cards and be trying to figure out what's going on. But you want to keep it quiet, especially about the traits, unless you're trying to mislead the director as to what you think. Because the director doesn't know which 13 traits you chose. And if they're trying to mislead you to think that the murderer is really something else, they could be misleading you towards something that you didn't even have as one of the 13 traits. Especially if you're including the possibly advanced traits. There's a ludicrous number of traits that could be in there, and the director could have no clue which ones you actually chose, other than the ones that are on their solution board. So you're going to want to be quiet about it, because once you get to day 3, if there's one of them where the director is trying to mislead you, and they're misleading you and pointing towards multiple different things because they're not really sure which one you are, you could start saying murderer and point towards the murderer and apartment B and say, I think they're the murderer, and people are saying yes or no. And that could be a way that if it is a competitive round, you could possibly figure it out and possibly guess that there is a murderer. This is a game that slowly reveals itself to you. The first time you play it, you're probably not going to play it silently, and it'll probably be fine as long as it's the first time for everybody playing. But once you've played it once or twice, people are going to start to realize if you're talking, you're giving things away. And the director is going to realize that if you're talking, you're giving things away that they can pick up on. And if you start saying out loud, oh, I really think that this person over here is the klutz, when in reality that's the murderer, they'll be like, oh, they did the klutz as one of the possible things. So I'm going to start really giving them cards that point towards the klutz. So you got to be careful. But as long as everyone who's playing it has played this the same number of times, you should be roughly at the same place if you play it with your normal player group, where you all evolve with the game together. And again, when it starts getting too easy, you have the advanced tiles to graduate onto. The game is very interesting in that way, and also incredibly thematic, because this really feels like the designers watched the movie Rear Window again and again and again, and were like, what mechanics will represent this possibly? And they picked amazing mechanics that thoroughly represent the game of Rear Window. Okay, so let's discuss some negatives. My first negative I want to say with this game is that it can definitely be tough if the players are at different levels in regard to playing this game. If you have someone who's played this game a few times and they're playing with people who it's their first time playing it, and they are playing as the director, they're going to have a huge leg up, especially because people who haven't played before will not fully understand the importance of being silent. You may want to emphasize that to them because you don't want them to think you're cheating them, so you don't want them especially because you are better at playing the game if you played it like 3 times and they haven't. There can be a definite imbalance there. If you have a couple of people who played the game a few times, you probably want to have one of them on the player side so they can help them realize that things like playing silently are really important. Because first time you play, you may not realize that. It's the sort of thing that you're like, why do you actually have to be silent? Until you see it happen. Other downsides, one thing is that when there's not a murderer, the game can feel very similar to Mysterium, which is another game that's in a lot of people's collections. But the fact that there can be a murderer, and when there is a murderer, this game actually feels very different from Mysterium, on a positive note, means that there could be room in your collection for both, especially if you're a fan of Rear Window. On another positive note, in addition to the gameplay being super thematic, there are tons of references to the movie in the rulebook, in the components. They apparently got the rights to actually use the likenesses of the actors and the director, because illustrations in here look like Grace Kelly, Jimmy Stewart, and Alfred Hitchcock himself, which is crazy. They have the rights to use them, and they use them. And it looks great. I really love that. I love that the rulebook looks like the magazine that Jimmy Stewart's character was working for when he took the photos when he got injured because of the car crash that he was photographing. The game is insanely thematic. Okay, so the game is fun. The game is cool. If you're a fan of the movie, the game is ludicrously thematic. The references, the rules, everything is very, very much made to represent the events of the movie in an incredibly detail-oriented way that I really enjoy. This game is cool. This game is fun. If you're a fan of the old movie, I would definitely recommend this to you. If you're a fan of deduction games, and your player group are big deduction game fanatics, I would definitely recommend this game to you. I am going to give Rear Window 7.5 stars out of 10. I think this game is quite fun and super thematic. And this is one that, because of the fact that there aren't too many games that play like this, just sort of this and Mysterium in my collection right now, I think will have a place in my collection for the foreseeable future. I really enjoy this game. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, either on the game of Rear Window or this review, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this review of Rear Window and you'd like to see me do more reviews of games like this, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.